Welcome back. As part of our ongoing series, we will be talking to candidates here in the Garden State who are making a run for the House and Senate. Here to discuss that with me is Murray Sabrin, who is vying for the Republican nomination for U.S. Senate. And before we talk to you, I want to just say that in our former segment, we did invite Senator Lautenberg to come by and talk. He was not available. Now, let's talk about your candidacy. There's 3 of you vying for this nomination. What makes you different?
I've been a leader on these issues, these fiscal issues, whether it's the budget issue at the federal level, the tax issue, regulation, the financial system, the fragile nature of our financial system, the dollar crisis that we're facing here and abroad. These are issues I've been leading on. I've been writing about them. I've been speaking out about them for many, many decades.
It sounds as if you're saying it's the economy, stupid.
It certainly is, because we have a financial system that's very fragile. We have a dollar that's collapsing in value, and it's because we have an institution that was created nearly 100 years ago that was supposed to smooth out the business cycle, that was supposed to maintain the purchasing power of the dollar, and yet it hasn't done so. And that's, of course, is the Federal Reserve System, which the chairman, Ben Bernanke, is now in Congress discussing these issues. And so what we need to do is go back to a traditional financial system, which means that the government, through the Federal Reserve, does not debase the currency by creating all this credit. So
in New Jersey, this is a specific problem. And what would you be able to do if you actually did get to Washington on this issue to help the New Jerseyans who are struggling to keep their homes?
Well, I think first we need an education, because most people are convinced that the federal government needs to stimulate the economy. That, I think, is the biggest myth in our society. That comes from the Great Depression, the need for the government to stimulate the economy.
No bailouts.
No bailouts. I think what we need to do is let the market work, which means that in a speculative boom like we've had recently with residential housing, we had it in the 90s with the dot-com bust. And of course, that ended terribly for some companies, but we're back to a technology boom again, which is working pretty well. So we have to do the same thing in the housing market. And what we need to do is let the borrowers, the homeowners, and the lenders get together and make arrangements so they both can be satisfied, rather than the lenders having to take on all these houses that they can't sell at the current prices.
Now, looking at the candidacy issue here, the FDU poll, the Public Mind poll, reported that most New Jerseyans really don't recognize you or the other 2 candidates. With that as a background, what kind of chance do you think you have of actually making an impact in this race?
Well, that's what we're doing every day. We're raising money in order to get the funds necessary to get our message across in the media, because after all, people listen to radio, they watch cable television, they watch Channel 9, and our job is to get our message across. I'm going around the state meeting with people at local Republican clubs. Since this is the Republican primary, that's our target audience, and our message is resonating because people know that there's something fundamentally wrong with our economy, and what is wrong is what I've been talking about for so many decades, namely that the government cannot manage our economy. It's been tried for decades, and the result today is the situation that we're in, where we have huge problems at the federal level with the budget. We have $72 trillion of unfunded liabilities. That means young people today will have to spend half of their income in federal taxes just to pay for the promises that the federal government has made to future generations.
Now, let's go to other issues, because there are other factors in the campaign. One of your pet peeves is illegal immigration. What would you like to do?
We're not doing anything because there's no consensus on what should be done. We know for a fact at the local level, fences make good neighbors. And so what I'm suggesting is maybe we should do something in that arena.
Build the fence?
Build a fence that would not be aimed at any particular group or segment of other countries, but just to protect our own national security.
But it would be on the border with Mexico.
And Canada. And Canada.
And you want to put a fence between the U.S. and Canada,
Why
too?
not? Why not? Because after all...
I didn't think the Canadians were rushing across the border.
Well, they're coming here for medical care. We have to stop those pesky Canadians from coming in for our medical care.
They've got free medical care up there.
Well, no, they pay a lot of taxes to get that free medical care.
Yeah.
But the point is, we need to have a national security. We need to have immigration laws that are cognizant of people's desire to come here, of the need of American companies to get labor. There are American people who want jobs. There are foreigners who want to come here and work. And I'm an immigrant. We came here in 1949 when I was 2 years old because my parents decided to come to America. And so we went through the normal channels of getting papers, applying for immigration, and we came to America and built a life. I think that's what a lot of people want to do. Unfortunately, there are people who are criminals in their homeland and they want to escape and come to America and do whatever they do here, which they've done there. So Obviously, we're going to deport people who are using criminal...
But do you think a fence is really going to keep those people out?
It's not going to be a panacea. The point is we have to have a humane policy. We're dealing with people, with people's lives. And we're reaching a humanitarian crisis in America because of what's called birthright citizenship, where women are coming across the border, giving birth. Those babies become American citizens.
And you don't think they should be?
There are very few countries that have that in place. In other words, citizenship is not based upon location. It should be based upon accepting the cultural values.
That would be a fundamental change.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
I think we have to change the Constitution because the 14th Amendment allows that to happen.
Wow. Okay. Now, let's talk about education. That's a huge issue. School choice. You support this. Tell me how you think it should work.
We have education controlled by local school boards. Unfortunately, we have the Federal Department of Education, and we have state departments of education. So we have layers and layers of bureaucracy which tell local school districts how to function. Well, that's what we elect local school boards to do, to take care of the education needs of local children. What I'm proposing is that we have federal tax credits for parents who feel that local schools are not doing a good job and want to send their kids to parochial schools or independent schools or even homeschool. We already have federal tax credits for college education. Well, let's extend that concept to K through 12 education. This way, parents could have a little tax relief because they're also paying state income taxes, which go to education, and local property taxes.
You don't think that that might undermine the school system as it stands by having students just leaving?
Well, you're not going to have it en masse. What we need to recognize is that people should have choices in education, just have choices in everything, whether it's TVs and movies and automobiles and restaurants. Let's extend it to that because we know competition brings out the best in people.
Sometimes.
Sometimes.
Sometimes it brings out the worst. Let's get right down to it. Odds makers looking at your candidacy, you know, say in the general, would probably give you chances verging on a snowballs in hell. What makes this worthwhile for you?
The Giants won the Super Bowl. Very few people thought the Giants would win the Super Bowl. I consider myself the New York Giants of this election campaign because I didn't think the Giants were going to win the Super Bowl. In politics, anything is possible. That's what we've learned over the years.
And you think that centrist, moderate New Jersey with the big independent swing vote is going to swing your way?
Well, there are 2.8 million unaffiliated voters in the state. And many of them don't show up to vote. Why don't they show up to vote when we've had so-called moderates running? The thing is, what I offer is a sharp contrast between the Democrats. Their whole agenda is to grow government. Well, we know in New Jersey, when you grow government, taxes go up, spending goes up, regulation goes up, and jobs are leaving, people are leaving the state. What we need to do is go back to our traditional roots.
And you plan to galvanize the public. Good luck.
Absolutely. Thank you, Brenda.
Thank you. Next, could New Jersey really be considered the soprano state? We'll explain when New Jersey Now continues. Stay tuned.